holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Ken Kominski, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Niagara Gazette of the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. By dawn's early light, Christians gather at sunrise on Easter for spiritual reawakening by Rick Pfeiffer. Despite the 43-degree temperature and a stiff wind, Reverend Lisa Elkington of Bacon Memorial Presbyterian Church was joyful on Sunday morning, looking at a group of just over 24 worshipers huddled together against the cold in the LaSalle Waterfront Park gazebo at 7:30 a.m. She pumped her arms into the air and exclaimed, "The hardy followers of Christ." Her benediction was the conclusion of an Easter sunrise service for parishioners of Bacon Memorial and Riverside Presbyterian churches, a tradition of Christian congregations on the holiest day of the church's calendar. Holy Week, beginning on Palm Sunday, is the biggest week of the year for us, Elkington said. You know, the story of the resurrection begins in the dark, and showing up at sunrise can be really moving. If you get up and get out of bed, you feel how special the day is. Reverend Laura Morris Buish of Riverside Presbyterian Church, who led the service with Elkington, said the gathering can inspire the congregations. When we are together, we lift each other up, she said. That's why we gather today, to be together. Sunday was the second year that the congregations gathered in the LaSalle Park. For 15 years before that, the service had taken place at Gratwick Park in North Tonawanda, also along the usually cold, icy, and windswept shores of the Niagara River in late March or early April. I think one of the things it reminds us is we're alive, Morris Buish said. The cold and the breeze make you feel alive. Easter early morning, the mist off the water, it's just new life, new breath. Elkington shares that view. When you have a chance to celebrate with your Christian community, not in church, it's a powerful thing, she said. You feel a part of something bigger than yourself. For the worshipers on Sunday, Morris Buish said the sunrise service is different from others. The 24 people or so that were there, they are always there at the sunrise service, Morris Buish said. It reminds you of the simple moments in life. As chunks of ice floated down the river past the worshipers in the gazebo, Morris Buish reminded the congregation that it had been a morning like this when the followers of Jesus Christ went to his tomb the day after his crucifixion. When they discovered that Christ's body was gone, they believed the biblical prophecy of his resurrection. Then, looking over at a news photographer and reporter nearby, Morris Buish said the congregants, it's a newsworthy event that Jesus Christ has risen. Next, mum's the word on critical OTB audit. Local Republicans have no comment on findings of mismanagement by Dale Shoemaker and Mark Shearer. The state comptroller's scathing audit of Western Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation has landed with a thud. Despite finding years of financial mismanagement, the comptroller is making no referrals to criminal investigators. Niagara County Republicans, who in September appointed former OTB boss Henry Wojtaszek to the agency's board of directors, have nothing to say publicly about the damning report. Neither does leadership of the OTB board. Niagara County Democrats, meanwhile, are calling for accountability, but hold only 4 of 15 seats on the county legislature. The lack of follow-through has frustrated critics of OTB and Wojtaszek's tenure. At present, Wojtaszek is poised to obtain a license from the state gaming commissions that will allow him to be a voting member of the board. I think this is a glaring case of a disproportionate reward for shoddy performance, said Niagara County Legislature Carla Speranza, Democrat from Lockport. Wojtaszek did not return phone calls seeking comment for this story. Others said the lack of response to the critical audit suggests that little is likely to change at the public agency that's spent lavishly on salaries, health insurance, consultants, and other perks over the years. The controller found that spending resulted in lower payments to the local governments that own OTB. The audit also found likely violations of 2 civil laws. While there have been some improvements in the last year in corporate governance and control measures, not enough has happened, said OTB board member Timothy Callan, who represents Erie County. The state audit should be a clarion call to board members. One government reform advocate said the audit illustrates why OTB has no reason to exist anymore. The audit creates a scathing picture of the total dumpster fire that Western OTB was under the GOP patronage regime, said John Caney, executive director of reInvent Albany. He noted that in New York, horse racing and betting, OTB's statutory reason for existing, is circling the drain. There's zero that they can do to change that trend, he said. And so this is just going to be a matter of time before the Titanic sinks. Niagara County Republicans have nothing to say in response to the audit. Investigative Post and the Niagara Gazette contacted each of the 11 Republicans on the county legislature, all of whom voted to appoint Wojtaszek to the OTB board last year. Only 2 responded, and both said they hadn't read the audit. I've been knee-deep in tax season. I haven't even looked at it, said Randy Bratt, an accountant and GOP majority leader of the Niagara County Legislature. I haven't even seen it yet. Legislator David Godfrey said he, too, hasn't read the audit when reached by phone Friday afternoon. DiNapoli released the audit Wednesday morning. I am not familiar with any of the details, so there's nothing that I can comment on, he said. Former legislature chair Rebecca Wydish, who led the effort to appoint Wojtaszek, and county GOP chair Richard Andres, did not return phone calls requesting comment. Members of the OTB board of directors, too, had little to say about the audit. Reached Monday, Chairman Dennis Bassett, whose tenure began in the fall of 2023, more than a year before Wojtaszek resigned effective the end of 2024, said he couldn't comment. He said he had been in the hospital for the past 8 days. I have thoughts about getting better and getting out of the hospital, he said. One board member, Schuyler County Representative Paul Bartow, said he believes the audit will lead to meaningful change. He said the audit identified systemic gaps in oversight and process, but that with sustained diligence, clear standards, and ongoing scrutiny, changes will be possible. Regarding Wojtaszek, he demurred, I think it's important not to make decisions like that in a reactive way, Bartow said. The audit raises serious concerns, and those need to be addressed directly. The Comptroller's office said it's taking no position on Wojtaszek's appointment to the OTB board. I can't really say yay or nay, said Melissa Myers, Chief of Municipal Audits, who oversaw the OTB audit. I think that there certainly needs to be controls in place. A state gaming commission spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment. Wojtaszek did not return multiple phone calls or text messages seeking an interview for the story. Democrats serving in the minority in the Niagara County Legislature stopped short of saying they would formally call for Wojtaszek's removal, but Speranza said the idea is not off the table. I have done a once-over with it. I haven't gone over the details, but it certainly points to some dubious portrayal of performance and definitely worth a deeper dive, Speranza said, referring to the audit. I didn't believe he should have been appointed in the first place, and I voted against it last fall. She added, I'm not trying to witch hunt anybody, but this just isn't right. The legislator's minority leader, Chris Robbins, Democrat from Niagara Falls, said a better course of action would be to invite Wojtaszek to a future legislature meeting so he could address issues cited in the audit. I didn't vote for him to be the county rep in the beginning, and I don't think he is offering any oversight, Robbins said. Robbins said he's still not pleased with the direction of the organization, despite management changes made by Wojtaszek's successor, Byron Brown. I don't think OTB is any better than it was before, to be honest with you, Robbins said. The comptroller's audit found that between January 2021 and December 2024, Wojtaszek and other executives mismanaged OTB's finances, while the Public Benefit Corporation's board of directors did not adequately plan and monitor the corporation's financial operations. We determined the board created a lax control environment in which the corporation's management made key financial decisions with little or no oversight by the board, the report concluded. The report found spending under Wojtaszek increased at a far faster clip than revenues. Some lawyers and consultants were hired and paid without proper board approval, and salaries, particularly for management, spiked. Wojtaszek left with a package that included $299,000 cash and lifetime health insurance. And as a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time now is 12 minutes past the hour. Next, NFR Associates go big on campaign contributions. Records show company top reps have pumped hundreds of thousands into campaign offers by Mark Scheer. The private company Niagara Falls Redevelopment has floated a lot of ideas for redeveloping the 140 acres of property it has owned in Niagara Falls since the late 1990s. While the company has yet to deliver on any of its plans, NFR and its affiliates have remained active in a different way, donating big bucks to elected officials and political campaign committees. A Niagara Gazette analysis of records on file with the New York State Board of Elections shows NFR, a similar named entity, listed on reports as Niagara Fall Development, and NFR's longtime executive vice president, Roger Trevino, has in the past 2+ decades contributed more than $325,000 to various local and state election campaigns. Public records also show the amount is far less than the more than $1 million NFR Howard Milstein has donated to mostly state-level candidates over roughly the same campaigns and the political process. He also suggested that if the Niagara Gazette reviewed campaign donations from any organization of any size in Western New York dating back to 1999, it would find examples of larger contributions over that period of time. While perhaps true, none of those organizations have what NFR has control for nearly 3 decades of more than 140 acres of largely undeveloped land near the heart of a city located on the edge of one of the most recognizable tourist destinations in the world. State campaign finance records show, as a company, Niagara Falls Redevelopment has made local and state campaign donations totaling $191,000 since 1999. Records show the bulk of those donations were made to individual candidates and political party committees in Niagara and Erie counties. The newspaper's analysis shows another $97,000 being donated by Niagara Fall Development, a similar sounding entity to NFR without the S in the Falls. Records show the bulk of the donations made by Niagara Falls Redevelopment and Niagara Fall Redevelopment came from the same address, 1625 Buffalo Avenue in Niagara Falls, which is the former local headquarters for NFR. Several more recent donations were listed as coming from an address at 800 Main Street, the current location of NFR's local headquarters. In an email response to questions, NFR spokesman James Haggerty said there is no entity called Niagara Fall Redevelopment, singular. He did not respond to follow-up questions seeking additional clarification. State records also show Trevino has, on his own, contributed over $39,000 more to various local and state campaigns since 2006. Added all up, and the combined financial impact of the campaign contributions from NFR, Niagara Fall Redevelopment, and Trevino totaled over $327,000, according to the Gazette's analysis. Even more money, more than triple the amount donated by the two NFR-related entities, and Trevino, has been donated to mostly statewide political campaigns and campaign committees by NFR co-owner Howard Milstein. The Gazette's analysis of State Board of Elections records shows that between 1998 and 2024, Howard Milstein made 107 donations totaling $1.025 million to candidates for public office and political party campaign committees in New York. Ranking high among the list of politicians who have received the most campaign cash from Milstein, Governor Kathy Hochul. Records show Milstein made 4 donations totaling $85,000 to the governor's campaign committee. Friends for Kathy Hochul since 2021. According to the records, he made his recent donation for $18,000 to Hochul's campaign on January 8, 2024. The records show Milstein also made a $25,000 contribution to Hochul's campaign committee in 2021, a $27,600 donation in May 2022, and gave the governor $14,500 more in September 2022. Hochul is not the first New York governor to benefit from Milstein's generosity. Records show the billionaire real estate developer and banker from New York City provided similar campaign support to the committee representing Hochul's predecessor, the former Governor Andrew Cuomo. The State Board of Elections lists Milstein as making 6 donations totaling $190,000 to the Friends of Andrew Cuomo campaign committee between 2008 and 2021. Under his tenure as governor, Cuomo appointed Milstein to serve as chair of the New York State Thruway Authority. As authority chair, Milstein helped oversee the authority's $3.9 billion replacement of the Tappan Zee Bridge, now known as the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge, that crosses the Hudson River, connecting Rockland County to Westchester County. In addition, records show Howard Milstein has donated tens of thousands of dollars to support candidates and political campaign committees at the federal level, including more than $163,000 to the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, and the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee. Public and party officials indicated that campaign donations have no bearing on decision-making related to donors, and NFR has been no exception. Andres, the Republican county lawmaker from North Tonawanda, who also serves as chair of the county GOP campaign committee, said there's nothing untoward about any donations NFR has made to his party or his candidates. As the entity's holdings are based in the Falls, Andres said, most of the public business tied to NFR involves city, not county officials. I can't think of any decisions that we have made that would impact NFR or their projects, he said. Andre said he has not engaged in any high-level discussions regarding NFR's current big proposal, a $1.5 billion data center known as the Niagara Digital Campus that the company says it wants to build in the city's downtown area. I never take any proposed development as a sure development, he said. $1 billion development, that would be nice. As for Governor Hochul, Brian Lensmeyer, a spokesperson for her campaign committee, issued the following statement in response to questions about Milstein's donations. Consistent with Governor Hochul's commitment to maintain high ethical standards, campaign contributions have no influence on government decisions. Next article from Sports, More Than a Whistle. With the Falls always in mind, Nichols reached the gold standard for friendship and officiating by Nick Sabato. If that ball comes down, you're getting a technical. That's what Hank Nichols said after legendary North Carolina State coach Jim Valvano slammed a ball in frustration. Nichols watched as it ricocheted off the wooden floor and soared high in the air. Valvano got his shots in through the years, though. Don't even think about it, Jimmy, Nichols warned the coach after he stormed out of the locker room after halftime of a game he had already gotten a technical in. When Nichols said he wouldn't give Valvano a technical just for thinking, the gregarious coach naturally had a retort. Well, Henry, Valvano said, I think you stink. The reality was, few people thought Nichols stunk, including Valvano. Not as a basketball official, friend, or dad. It was hard to dislike a man generous with his time, loyal to his friends, doting as a father, and fair as an official. Nichols packed a lot of life into 89 years. He lived many lives, sometimes simultaneously. He traveled for a living and hadn't lived in Niagara Falls for nearly 60 years when succumbed to a series of ailments March 27th, but he could still paint a vivid picture of the city that remained home. Life was good, Nichols told GNN Sports in a 2022 interview. It was a typical American town that you see in the movies. Old movies, that is. Known as Henry in the Falls, the 1954 Bishop Duffy graduate settled in Philadelphia in 1970 as he embarked on a career that included being an assistant professor and longtime chair of the education department at Villanova. He did that while enjoying an officiating career including 2 Olympics, 6 NCAA championship games, and 10 Final Fours. Nichols' officiating career led him to become the NCAA's first coordinator of officials in 1987, a job he helped for 22 years. And his career ended with an induction into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2012. All the while, it was important to Nichols that people knew he was from the Falls and that he was proud of growing up on Cleveland Avenue and then Cedar Avenue. After marrying Letitia Marino in 1966, they lived on Lafayette Avenue. While he was a Villanova man through and through, he definitely considered himself from Niagara Falls and was always proud of that. Nichols' son Jeff said he would make sure that was never lost on anyone. He would make sure that people know that and that he was proud of it. Nichols initially tried to make a living playing baseball. He earned a scholarship to play catcher for Villanova and also started on the freshman basketball team. After a stint in the Marines, Nichols spent 3 years playing in the Cincinnati Reds organization, hitting .330 as a player-manager in the Western Carolina League. As a teacher in Niagara Falls, Nichols tried his hand in coaching, and then his brother talked him into being a referee. He called games around Niagara County and became so good that when he moved to Durham, North Carolina, to obtain his doctorate at Duke University, former Niagara player and Hall of Fame coach Hubie Brown, then an assistant for the Blue Devils, who struck a friendship with Nichols while student teaching at Duffy, got Nichols a tryout in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Officials can sometimes be vagabonds, bouncing from city to city and traveling cross-country. Nichols often drove to games, but when he couldn't, it was during a time when he could still catch a late flight after the game. He had to work the next day and be with his wife and 4 children, Jeff, Rachel, Sarah, and Emily. There was an occasional no, but there was really no ask that was too ridiculous, Jeff said. He would try to accommodate us really any way he could, if it was at all possible. That thoughtfulness also trickled down to his friends. Nichols met Mike Gormley in 1st grade, and they were friends for over 80 years. Long after introducing Gormley to a swimming spot on the Niagara River near the Shalkoff Power Station, before a rock slide caused it to fall into the Niagara Gorge in 1956, leaving the falls, he and Gormley exchanged phone calls regularly. Nichols was Gormley's best man and the godfather to his first son. Nichols introduced Gormley to the Jersey Shore Nichols summer home in Maryland. They traveled by car to some of Nichols' officiating trips or clinics, while evening taking a couple golf trips to Ireland. Distance never seemed to be a barrier for Nichols, because if he considered someone a friend, it was typically one that lasted for life. Just very loyal, Gormley said. If he was your buddy, he was your buddy forever. He lived at my house as much as he lived at his house. My mother and father knew him as well as I did. He was well schooled in everyday life. He had a wide range of friends from every walk of life. It took one summer for Bill Bradshaw to develop a lifelong friendship with Nichols. Nichols saw a future professional second baseman in Bradshaw, 11 years his junior, and invited him to play for his semi-pro team while in high school at Duffy. Bradshaw eventually became a star after walking on at LaSalle, also in Philadelphia, and eventually became one of the NCAA's elite athletic administrators at DePaul, LaSalle, and Temple. It didn't matter where Bradshaw lived, he always kept in touch with Nichols and vice versa. When Bradshaw moved back to Philadelphia for his stints at LaSalle and Temple, he sought real estate advice from Nichols. They dined regularly, golfed, or talked about whatever came to mind. He developed into, as I look back, as the big brother I never had, Bradshaw said. It was different than somebody you run into. We ran into each other on purpose and always stayed in touch. He was the big brother I never had. Keeping impartiality, Nichols never socialized with coaches when he was an official. But when then Villanova coach Raleigh Massimino hired a new assistant named Steve Lapis in 1985, the first person he was introduced to was Nichols. That kick-started a friendship that lasted over 40 years. Lapis left to become Manhattan's head coach in 1988 and returned to Villanova in 1992, serving as a head coach until 2001. Before settling permanently in Philadelphia, Lapis moved again to coach Massachusetts from 2001 to 2005 and never lost touch with Nichols. Most of their friendship came before texting and emailing, but they called each other weekly. Nichols traveled to attend Lapis's games in Massachusetts, and they stayed in each other's homes. While coaching Villanova, Lapis had friends over after every game. Sometimes they would debate Nichols, usually defended the officials, or simply talk basketball with the other professors. Nichols outlived most who saw him compete in his prime, although he never let Gormley forget a collision at the YMCA on Portage Road that knocked out Nichols' front teeth. It was impossible to forget because Nichols would pop out his replacement plate on occasion for a laugh. But Nichols was a fierce competitor, not just on the basketball court or baseball diamond. Years after Nichols gave up being a player, his competitive side would simmer to the surface on occasion. That was especially true on the golf course. He would play $2 Nassau and he would be ready to kill somebody, Lapis quipped. Duffy saw it while playing for Nichols Duffy's Boosters semi-pro team. The team consisted of Duffy high school players, and they got thumped 9-0 by former college and pro players in their first game. Some teams petitioned to boot them from the league because they weren't good enough. Naturally, that rankled Nichols, and the Duffy team ended up winning the league. Like Lapis, Bradshaw also saw his competitive nature emerge years later on the golf course. Bradshaw and Nichols were playing a friendly game when they reached the 18th hole. A 1.5-foot putt separated Bradshaw from winning or tying. He wanted to just call it, and Nichols refused. Bradshaw had to putt, and he missed. He started yipping and yapping, and he was so proud of that, Bradshaw said. I said, "You son of a gun, Henry, that's like making a call with 3 seconds to go." He was so competitive. I mean, we would go at it, and it was so much fun. Nichols' children never got to see that side, but they could sense it when it came to their athletic endeavors. Nichols didn't go overboard, but it was clear he was passionate about what they were doing. All the while, Nichols rarely bragged to them about his own accomplishments. There were anecdotes about sparring with Jim Boeheim, Mike Krzyzewski, and Dean Smith, or his run as Conrad Birdie in the school production, but never bragging. Nichols was deeply proud of his induction into the Naismith Hall of Fame, but it was likely far from his favorite accomplishment. I think he would be the first to tell you that his biggest accomplishment was being a husband and a father to us, Jeff said. I don't know that I can say that he was ever on record saying that, but if somebody put that question to him and forced him to answer it, I think that's how he would answer it. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now about 32 minutes past the hour. Next, Finding a Voice, Ibero Business Center looking to bring in language access services to Niagara by Robert Creenan. Arriving in a new country can be difficult for anyone, but being expected to start a new life where you cannot understand the main language can be impossible without help. With its language access program already successful in Rochester, the Ibero-American Action League is looking to expand the program in Western New York. Plans call for its local branch, the Ibero Business Center, Western New York, based out of 6951 Williams Road in Niagara Falls, to start hosting translators who can help immigrants and deaf people navigate the various services needed for American life. When we remove language barriers, we empower individuals to advocate for themselves, strengthen families and community resilience, and create more equitable systems overall, said Julio Jordan, the League's Director of Diversity, Equity, Justice, and Inclusion. Such interpreters can help non-English speakers navigate their way through financial and medical issues and better participate in civic matters. It also helps companies comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. Ibero-American Action League plans on starting with Spanish translators and sign language interpreters, potentially expanding to accommodate more languages, especially those spoken by Niagara Falls' prominent South Asian community. The Ibero-American Action League's other programs in the Rochester area, including setting up low-income housing on that city's east side, establishing a bilingual charter school, starting the city's annual Puerto Rican festival, and most recently starting a Spanish-language radio station. They serve primarily Spanish speakers in 5 counties based in the Rochester, Buffalo, and Albany areas. While Ibero Business Center's coordinator, Marisol Vila, said they know Buffalo's Latino community can be easily helped, given their concentration in the city's west side. They are not certain where Niagara County's Latinos are based. They know of a community in the Lockport area, but there is a fear of gathering together, given the federal government's anti-immigration stance and the number of ICE abductions of foreigners. The main reason is that they are afraid to get together in a group setting, and working one by one is even harder. Vila said, because they might think that because I come from my bureau, from an organization, this organization may be also related with immigration. Their event also included a 5-person panel discussion how difficult it can be for someone to navigate a new country without understanding the language and what improvements can be made. They brought up how interpreters can be either not up to state standards for helping people or unfamiliar with different cultural aspects of a language. Aero transportation owner Anis Mangla noted how Spanish is different in Spain, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Colombia. One panelist, Camille Gerald, brought up how despite New York State having one of the strongest language access frameworks in the country, it does not cover sign language, only spoken languages. The center also showed a 15-minute short film showcasing 3 immigrant families from Venezuela and Nicaragua now living in Rochester and their struggles adapting to American life. Having people who can translate or who can be an interpreter, it will help no matter what, Vela said, because there are so many services out there that it will be good for other members of the community to enjoy those services. Next article, Clean Team at Work. DPW employees move to address illegal dumping and cleanliness concerns, by Rick Pfeiffer. It was the kind of blitz that has become routine for Niagara Falls Department of Public Works employees. At about 8 a.m. Thursday, the city's clean team zoomed into a mid-city neighborhood near Pine Avenue, targeting 2 sites that appear to have been used for illegal dumping. What they found was lots of trash scattered between a couple of homes, overflowing recycling dumpsters, and enough discarded furniture to fill a good-sized apartment. A frustrated Mayor Robert Restano said what the clean team encountered was nothing out of the ordinary. They are out all the time, the mayor said of the clean team's effort. We have people who don't know how to take care of their property. Currently, the clean team consists of 4 part-time DPW workers, and the mayor said that's not enough to manage the challenge of illegal dumping and owners who refuse to take care of their properties. I could probably use 5 teams of 4 people each, the mayor said, and I don't know if they'd even scratch the surface of the problem. It's disappointing that people are not taking pride in our community. Restano said the city is trying to address complaints about problems of cleanliness in the tourist and business districts, as well as residential neighborhoods. But he said city government can't do it all on its own. Everyone has the responsibility to help keep the city clean, the mayor said. The real discussion has to be how every resident and property owner takes that responsibility. Despite some recent reports questioning city efforts to deal with trash, Restano said there are dozens and dozens of neighborhoods filled with people who attend those things. We need people to take responsibility for picking up when they create trash, he said. And if you see illegal dumping, take a picture of it and send it to us. Otherwise, we show up after it's happened and we can't hold people accountable. The mayor also took aim at what he said are politicians taking shots at the efforts of DPW workers. It's a disservice to those people who are working hard, Restano said. They are working, doing their best. He also noted that the city is aggressively looking to hire more workers to fill DPW and other openings. The city will conduct its second job fair in the last 10 days on Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the LaSalle Branch Library. And now, a look back at the old days in Niagara County and Lockport, New York. One builder, two houses, and lots of confusion. Niagara Discoveries by Anne Marie Linnaberry. There were and still are historians who believe they never get anything wrong. But the truth is we are not infallible. Sometimes misinformation, even from what is considered a reliable source, and taken as true, turns out to be wrong. Misprints in newspapers, census records, obituaries, and other documents, as well as misidentified photos, can send you down the wrong rabbit hole, wasting hours of research to come up with nothing. Even checking and double-checking sources against each other sometimes is not enough. Maybe a family and or their residents are so confusing that you have to just step back and try to make sense of it all, trying to keep the connections straight while striving to tell a complicated story in the most uncomplicated way as possible, and hoping you got it right. This all started in the summer of 2024 when a Niagara History Center intern encountered what turned out to be an incident of misidentification. And when trying to correct it, we, myself included, also misread some things and ended up making a few new errors. The next few columns will hopefully try to clarify this, but may take a bit of rereading to keep track of it all. A photo of a stone house in the Niagara History Center collection was labeled incorrectly as the Helen Hoyer Farley House at 133 Hawley Street, Lockport. Not realizing this was the wrong house, the intern researched Mrs. Farley and the information was posted on Facebook. After several people commented the pictured house was not 133 Hawley Street, the post was taken down and we then began the search to find out whose house it actually was. After examining maps to find the stone houses in Lockport, consulting the city directories, and looking at the material we have on the existing stone houses, but not finding it there, we reasoned that the house most likely had been taken down, hoping that there may have been an article about the house being demolished. We searched the available newspaper databases and finally found one from 1963 in the Lockport Union Sun and Journal with a photo of the house that clearly matched the one in our files. It was at 52 East Avenue and was identified as the Isaac Dole House. We thought we had finally found the answer to the mystery house photo, and using the information we had, rewrote the Facebook post. Fast forward to a month ago, while going through our photos looking for something interesting to write about, the image of the stone house at 52 East Avenue resurfaced again, and it was thought with a little more research, it would make the basis of a good Niagara Discoveries article. This is where the confusion really began. The 1963 newspaper article about the house relayed that it was built in 1840 by Isaac Dole, that it was in the Dole family for generations, that a grandson, Daniel Dole, lived there from 1885 to 1904, that it was then sold to Benjamin Bartlett, who died in 1945, and he left the property to his housekeeper, and she later sold it to Paul Reynolds. It was Reynolds who owned the house in 1963 when it was purchased by a local developer to build new businesses in the East Avenue Washburn Street area at the very beginning of the urban renewal program in Lockport. Some of this information is correct, but a few of these facts were recently found to be associated with another Isaac Dole house that's still standing at 74 Niagara Street on the National Register. There is no mention of the Dole house at 74 Niagara in the 1963 article, but the parallel between the names associated with both houses is remarkable, confusing, and more than a coincidence. We'll start with Isaac Dole, the builder of both houses, and probably several more we don't know about. Dole was born in New Hampshire in 1788, came to Lockport in about 1833, and purchased the lot that became 74 Niagara Street. The Niagara Register marker on that house dates it to 1845, but some other sources believe it may have been constructed as early as 1835. There will be more about this house in a later article. Dole's wife was Hannah, maiden name unknown, and they had at least 2 children, Daniel E. and Sophia. Dole, along with several other men, owned the Red Bird line of stages, which, according to an 1845 advertisement, operated between Rochester, Lockport, Lewiston, and later Buffalo. Dole also built and sold property throughout the village of Lockport. The 1851 map of the village of Lockport, printed by surveyor Jesse Haynes, the year Isaac Dole died, shows the Niagara Street property as well as what would later be 52 East Avenue with the name Dole on it. There are other lots on that map identified with Dole, including another one on Niagara Street. Dole was involved in civic affairs, serving as fire chief in 1840, village president from 1841 to 42, and a village trustee later in the 1840s. In politics, he was a Whig, and in 1840 helped build a log cabin in Lockport in support of William Henry Harrison's presidential campaign, although Harrison never lived in a log cabin. Dole died in 1851 with his name and influence all over the village of Lockport. His wife Hannah would pass away in 1873, leaving the house at 74 Niagara Street and most of her estate to her daughter Sophia, causing son Daniel to contest the will. More about that in a later article. Isaac and Hannah Dole are buried in Cold Spring Cemetery. As a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now about 46 minutes past the hour. And now here's an article about basketball player from Grand Island, Dane Brown, called Continual Growth by Max O'Neill. Dane Brown's game is consistent. He gets you off your feet when he slams it down on a fast break, like he did multiple times in his 39-point performance against Monroe in the state tournament. It's the kind of play that makes you take in the moment and say, wow. But he also makes the basic plays that don't always show up on the stat sheet, but help his team win. It is the kind of plays that are getting him Division I attention and the Greater Niagara Newspaper's Player of the Year after averaging 23.7 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.8 steals, and 1.6 blocks per game while shooting 88.2% from the free throw line, 55.7% from the field, and 47.1% from the three-point line. It means a lot going from not being the best player in recent years, going from 8th grade to now, Brown said. Now, here I am, junior year, winning Player of the Year. It means a lot. Not for me, but for the Grand Island program as well. Over his career, Brown's points per game have improved from 8.2 as an 8th grader to now 23.7 this year, which are good for 7th most in Section 6, while his 617 total points are second most in the section as the Vikings went 23-3 and reached the Class A state quarterfinals for the first time in program history. It came after Jace Wilkie, last year's Niagara Frontier League Player of the Year, graduated and took his 21.2 points per game with him. Brown stepped in as the team's leading scorer, improving his average by 7.7 points per game. His teammates found him and he rewarded them more often than not. They had plays specifically to get Brown open and help him score. They ran pick and rolls and backdoor cuts to get him to the hoop. He's our scoring. Last year, I thought he stepped up and did a great job contesting shots, Grand Island head coach Chris Simpson said. We probably had 8 or 9 boards a game, so he's an important cog to what we do. For a team to be successful, you need more than one guy, but he checks off a lot of the items on the checklist when you're looking to be competitive and win games. And when Grand Island needed him most, Brown produced. In the team's 5 playoff games, Brown averaged 22 points, 10.8 rebounds, and 2.2 blocks per game, while shooting 61.2% from the field. In a 63-39 win over rival Lewiston Porter in the Section 6 Class A1 final, Brown had 29 points and 18 rebounds. He followed it up with 20 points and 12 boards against Fredonia in the Class A crossover and torched Monroe for 39 points and 12 rebounds. No team wants to lose, but I think especially with the team we had this year. We had such a special bond, Brown said. We're always with each other, hanging out after practice, going to practice, before practice. On the weekends, we were always playing basketball with each other, even if it wasn't in practice. I just didn't want the season to end, and I knew that I would have to step it up to help my team and keep on winning. Looking forward, after the graduation of John Neville, Brown will have to be his team's primary ball handler next year. As he does look ahead, Brown knows he will need to improve upon his ball handling to fill in the role left behind Neville. The loss to Maine Endwell on March 14th might be the last time that Dane Brown ever suits up for Grand Island. While the future is uncertain, there is a possibility that he does not suit up for his hometown school again, with transferring to a prep school as an option. This summer, he will be playing for the AAU team, Team New England, in the Puma Pro 16 League, where he is hoping to be seen by college coaches and improve his game through playing with new talent. It'll help me because it kind of gets me out of my comfort zone. It's a better bump over there at Team New England because they're 7-footers and there's really skilled guards, and I'm right in the middle. Brown said, I'm 6'7". I'm not the shortest, but I'm also not the tallest. So I get to go against really tall guys in the paint and also get to work with really fast guards on the perimeter. Regardless of whether or not he does decide to return or go the prep school route for his final high school season, this summer is incredibly important as he attempts to get noticed by college coaches. He has already heard from coaches from Niagara University and the University at Buffalo, but is hoping this summer will continue to give him more exposure. Simpson is helping him through that process, while also noting that Brown is doing a good job of getting his name out there on social media, and that he will be significantly helped by his summer of AAU basketball this year. If he does return, though, his expectations are sky high. He knows that his team can go further than they did this year. He knows that he has the capability to win more awards and receive more recognition for his play. I think I have a really good chance to go back-to-back, and not only that, but we have a really good chance to make an even farther run in the playoffs than we did this year, Brown said. We made it to the Elite Eight of the state tournament. Next year, we're looking for it all. And now let's take a look at the all-area basketball team. Graydon Barnwell. He's a senior guard from Lewiston Porter. Lewiston Porter senior Graydon Barnwell finished his career with a stat line of 16.9 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 5.2 assists. Next, Trey Gale, senior guard, Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls' Trey Gale led his team in scoring this year with an average of 11.9 points per game. The senior also had 4.4 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 1.2 steals per game. Next, Jarrell Neely. He's a senior forward from Medina. The Niagara Orleans League second-team selection helped lead his team to a 16-7 overall and an appearance in the Section 6 Class B1 title game. Jarrell Neely played in 22 games, averaging 16.6 points. John Neville is a senior guard from Grand Island. During this season, John Neville only averaged 3.6 per game, but he made his biggest impact in his ability to set up teammates. Neville had 7.2 assists per game, with his 188 total assists being the most in all of Section 6. Michael Wilkie, sophomore guard, Lewiston Porter. Michael Wilkie joins Barnwell on the all-area team after a season in which he averaged 18.7 points in 3.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1.7 steals per game. Wilkie helped Newport go 16-8 this season, while he scored double-digit points in 23 games, with his season best coming on February 13th when he scored 33 points against Kenmore East. Charlie Croft IV, the leading scorer in Lockport boys basketball history, finished his career with 1,678 points and at 19.1 points per game average. During his final season, the Niagara Frontier League Player of the Year averaged 29.6 points, 11 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 2.1 steals per game. Jack Giancola, senior forward from North Tonawanda. After his senior season, North Tonawanda's Jack Giancola was named to the Niagara Frontier League's first team. The big man averaged 15.3 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Giancola helped his squad make it all the way to the New York State PHSAA Class AA Far West Regional with a 17-7 record. Aiden Newman, a senior guard from Wilson. Aiden Newman finished his senior season as a Lake man, averaging 23.5 points, 5.4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. Newman also shot 40.7% from the field while helping his team put together a 19-3 overall record and a Niagara Orleans League title. And K.J. Wilkies, a sophomore guard from Grand Island. Grand Island's K.J. Wilkies helped his team have the program's best ever season, making it to the second round of the state tournament with a 23-3 record. During his sophomore season, Wilkies averaged 9.8 points, 3.2 assists, 3 rebounds, and 1.1 steals per game. And let's not forget from Grand Island, we just talked about Dane Brown, who averaged 23.7 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.8 steals, and 1.6 blocks per game in his ultimate high school season. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the current issues of the Niagara Gazette. We read from the Niagara Gazette every Saturday at 11 a.m. Your reader has been Ken Kuminski. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Dunkirk Observer. Following that at 1 o'clock, we have a reading of some of our Northtown Bee papers, including Amherst, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and Depew. And then at 2 o'clock, we have the Southtown Bees, which includes Orchard Park, the Hamburg Sun, the East Aurora, and West Seneca papers. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading broadcasts daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to people who are blind or have a print disability and are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. From broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road, Radio Reading continues our almost 40-year tradition of award-winning service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability